Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fragrant Bunker. Today we're going to review Chanel's Les Exclusifs Bel Respiro. I have the Eau de Parfum here. For the occasion, the 75 ml. Now I do have the 200 ml Eau de Toilette, released. Well, the batch that I have is from 2008, 2009, so relatively early batch, which really has the intense pissy grass going for it. And then we have the first edition of the Eau de Parfum from 2016, which I did not like at all. And then we have a batch code 7401, which is now coming on to the second year. So this is kind of, like 2 years ago. I want to say this batch was from 1.5 to 2 years ago. And it is an updated formula, in my opinion, of Bel Respiro. Oh my God, how much I love this perfume. So beautiful. You know, it had a phase when Olivier Polge took over Chanel from his dad, Jacques Polge. And so Olivier reformulated all of the fragrances from Eau de Toilette, the Les Exclusifs, to Eau de Parfum. But I did not like them. Big issue I had with Bel Respiro in the Eau de Parfum first iteration was a very cheap smelling detergent soap vibe. The current version is, whilst still being an aldehydic bomb, it is way more subdued, and the grass and the leather, the suede, the velvety, dusty suede comes out much more, and the green notes pop much better. So current formulations of Bel Respiro are amazing. Now, I have not smelled the 9XXX batch that is out currently. I have smelled the 8 batch, also great. The 9 batch, haven't smelled it yet, but the 7 batch, divine. So what do we have here? Well, we have a little bit of a kind of running back to the roots, similar to what we've experienced with Sycamore, the 2016 Eau de Parfum Sycamore. I could not stand it. Then they started reformulating it and dialing it back, and it's kind of now very, very close to what the last iteration of the Sycamore Eau de Toilette used to be prior to 2016, even though the Sycamore Eau de Toilette approaching 2016 was so watered down. It had nothing to do with the intensity of Sycamore 2008, 2009. Eau de Toilette, just bear that in mind as well. So in a weird way, Chanel's prices keep going up and up and up, but these perfumes now from Eau de Parfum form are kind of becoming more and more de toilettes with really expensive Eau de Parfum prices. So it's, on one end, I'm like, oh, that's not fair. They're charging us way too much for them. But at the same time, I'm really happy that they're kind of going back to Eau de Toilette sense and smell. Not in terms of definition of what the perfume is, because in the back, you still have the sticker stating very clearly, even though it's very light. On the back of the sticker, they print the concentration. This is an Eau de Parfum. And boy, you can't really see, can you? Not really. It's very light gray. In the back of the sticker, it says Eau de Parfum. And it is a fingerprint magnet, so we have to clean it. I have this with me in my bag all the time. That's why, I use it all the time. So anyway, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Push the join button next to the subscription button. Become a member today. Get access to extra perks. You can also join me on Patreon, superdacob, all spelled together there as well, for extra perks. This video is being filmed live in front of a live virtual audience. I live stream several times a week. Come join the fun. Come join the chats. And everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, not rooted in truths or facts. Everything's alleged and just my opinion. So when it comes to the notes, right, we have green notes, grass, more grass, floral accords. I sense a bit of violet in here. There's a smidge of sycamore going on in the background. A bit of gardenia as well, believe it or not. Chanel's gardenia is a very green scent. There's a smidge of gardenia in here. leather. It's a beautiful suede, dry, dusty, almost smoky leather. But like if you were to smoke, like you were to cut grass, you cut the lawn like freshly, and then you let that grass lay there. Then you collect the grass, you pile it up in one spot, and then you try to burn it. You don't really do it, but you could. If you would, it would have a specific smoky, grassy smell. That's what you have in here as well. Galbanum is in here, as well as rosemary. And of course, a burst and pop of aldehydes. Bel Respiro, in its current state, as well as in its first eau de toilette iteration, and as well as in its current eau de parfum iteration, is, believe it or not, one of the most sophisticated and special of the entire Les Exclusifs range. Is it everyone's favorite? No, it is not a bestseller. This one does not sell as much as Coromandel, as much as Beige, as much as Gardenia, as much as Sycamore, as much as 1957. No, Bel Respiro is in that category of the odd kids. If I were to place Bel Respiro in a movie, it would be John Hughes' The Breakfast Club movie. It's that kid that ends up in detention on a Saturday. It's that kid that is not blending in with the masses. It's not your popular kid. It's a kid that has some trouble, but by trouble, I don't mean that this perfume has any trouble. Not at all. It is sublime and perfect the way it is. It has some trouble blending in. Why? Because it stands out. It's its own character. It's very, very strong. So this perfume, together with Chanel's number 18, not 19, although number 19 is green, but number 19 is not a Les Exclusifs fragrance. So Bel Respiro together with number 18 and together with La Pausa form the triptych. It's the trifecta of the most kind of misunderstood Chanel Les Exclusifs fragrances. Those are the three you're gonna hear the least amount of people talk about. Number 18 with its potpourri and brandy accord. La Pausa with its incredibly sophisticated combination of iris and orris root. And Bel Respiro with its sophisticated, freshly cut green grass vibe with leather accord, suede leather accord, and rosemary, as well as galbanum. They are the three sisters. Those three, they are shy. They hide in the background. They do not scream at you like Coromandel would. When you first discover the Chanel Les Exclusifs range, I'm talking when I discovered it the first time, way before Olivier Polge was even in the picture, and when, Chanel only had 7 of them. There was no Le Lion de Chanel yet. There was no Misia yet. There was no 1957. There was no Boy. Coromandel was the one that stood out the most. Even Beige wasn't out yet. Beige would come out right after the originals were released. And Coromandel was the one that screamed the loudest, and it would overshadow what used to be back then 28 La Pausa. La Pausa then lost its number when it transitioned from eau de toilette to eau de parfum and was just renamed La Pausa. But you can imagine having Coromandel, smelling Coromandel, and having La Pausa, 28 La Pausa next to it. It just completely overshadows 28 La Pausa. But interestingly enough, Bel Respiro has an acidy accord in there as well. That grass has a punch. What I call a pissy accord. It's what you get when you combine the leather with the freshly cut grass. It goes into that urine-y vibe, which some people might find disgusting. It's really beautiful for this perfume. Oh, there's orris root in here as well, because this goes powdery smooth at a certain point. I think you need that orris root to create the illusion of the leather being suede leather, being a powdery leather. Instead of it being a glossy textured leather, this is completely dry and suedey, like the best leathers that we're used to from back in the day, YSL bags made out of suede. Now, unlike 28 La Pausa not being able to fight back Coromandel, right? This one fights back Coromandel because it fights back with the acidity, with that pissy accord. So sometimes you get this vibe of, yeah, Coromandel is more intense. It's that ambery patchouli. I mean, patchouli always, is very cumbersome in many ways. So, but then you get Bel Respiro saying, yeah, I see it, I hear ya, I smell ya, you are loud, you are intense, but I can be intense too in a different way. So I have to find the strength that Coromandel doesn't have to stand my ground and my place as well, which is what Sycamore did. If you think about it as well, standing its ground against Coromandel, because Sycamore went down into the deep, wet vetiver root to deliver, also with violets, to deliver that accord that vibrated against Coromandel. So it's interesting how originally, right, Jacques Polge, together with Christopher Sheldrake, conceived the first Les Exclusifs as adjacent to one another, but also kind of clashing with each other and fighting each other for the prime position, It's like they're all children of the original inception DNA of Ernest Beau's perfumes for Chanel, and now they are the offspring. And as the offspring, they are hungry and eager to prove themselves worthy of the Chanel name without just being Nepo babies. So the nepotism, in this case, really, I would not call it nepotism. Just because Bel Respiro has the name Chanel on it, oh, well, then we have to consider it a special perfume because, nepotism, it has Chanel on it. No, not at all. While I do believe that fragrances like Boy fall into that Nepo category a little bit, not fully, but a little bit, Bel Respiro is a perfume in its own right. It has an amped, futuristic vibe of Chanel No. 19, which is Henri Robert's perfume creation. The galbanum in there, the Iranian galbanum, very, very, very powerful. Lebanese as well. Back in the 70s, then of course they had to stop harvesting it due to political situations. So of course then later on, the galbanum that we have now in No. 19 is very, very different from what it used to be in the 70s. But if you do get your hands on a 70s bottle of Chanel No. 19, you will experience galbanum. Okay. Here we have a synthetic thing going on. The galbanum, I don't know how natural this is. Could be, it is Chanel after all, but the beauty of this perfume is it really takes us to Chanel's little house mansion, if you want to call it, La Pausa, which was in France. Although La Pausa, sorry, why am I calling La Pausa? Bel Respiro. I'm mixing the two. Bel Respiro is another Chanel villa, just like La Pausa is one of Chanel's villas in the south of France. This one is outside of Paris. Bel Respiro would be kind of like a weekend escape for Coco Chanel, and the weekend escape would be immersed in green. So Bel Respiro, in Italian, it means a beautiful breath or a breath of fresh air, is also the name evoking the house where Coco Chanel would just kind of spend some time from time to time. And that house, if you see pictures of it online, it is completely immersed in greenery. There are trees of all sorts of types, shrubs of all sorts of types surrounding it. Everything that's green, from grass to trees. It's like Bel Respiro is positioned in the middle of like a big crown of green all around it. So everywhere you look, there's something green to look at. So I do believe that Jacques Polge, together with Christopher Sheldrake, got inspired by that vision. Probably brand marketing told them, hey, you got to name these new upcoming in the late 2000s when the Les Exclusifs were released. Brand marketing probably told them, okay, these are the points we want you to get inspired by to create the perfumes. They have to be connected to Coco's heritage, legacy, yada, yada. Makes sense, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not like it doesn't take a genius to figure out like what are the codes, the DNA codes to use stylistically to launch a first Les Exclusifs collection for Chanel, right? So it makes sense that Bel Respiro is part of it. But it also makes really wonderful sense to create this intense green fragrance that has a smidge of warmth in it. It's not just a cold green scent. You know, had this perfume been created by Henri Robert in the 60s and 70s, we would have gotten a chypre maybe more dark than Chanel No. 19 Parfum used to be in the 70s, because that's also a chypre by Henri Robert. But since this one is in the future, kind of, you know, in the late 2000s, we have a vision of a green fragrance that is not just dark and bitter. There's a sweetness lurking in the background here. There's like a musky accord. Oh, it's so beautiful. I mean, and I prompted my AI bubbles to generate a green room for this perfume in particular because it's such a green scent, but also to kind of create a vision for the future. If Coco Chanel were still alive today and if she were in Bel Respiro today, how would she furnish Bel Respiro today? So this is kind of the idea of how the interior of Bel Respiro would look like. Probably Coco would have done something completely different. But Bubbles, my AI, thought that Coco would do this. So there you go. This is a little vision of the interior of Bel Respiro. You see, that's why we have the perfume matching this particular background and color of the room and the decor. And as you can see through the window here, just a smidge of the natural surroundings of Bel Respiro with a lot of green. And look at that, it goes endlessly into the horizon. And then we got some trees there in the background, and a lot of trees back here as well. When I smell Bel Respiro, I feel very, very refreshed and invigorated. This is not like Chanel Les Exclusifs Eau de Cologne, which is beautiful right after you took a shower. It just makes you feel energized. This one makes you feel energized as well, but this is a level higher than a cologne, although the cologne is one of the best colognes I've ever smelled, the Chanel Eau de Cologne, Les Exclusifs. Here you smell that it's not just a cologne. This one has extra layers, extra levels of sophistication and complexity there. It's very futuristic. It's a futuristic green accord. That delivers one of the most beautiful smells of grass that you will ever smell. It is freshly cut grass with leather in it, and it's a frozen image in time, but in the future. It feels like wind is constantly blowing. There's a breeze in this ginormous, endless field of grass that's been cut. And the wind keeps bringing you wafts of that fresh green to you, but with the added floral accord, that musky sweetness, not just that bitter, green chypre accord that you could sometimes have with added, ton of oak moss. That's not the case here. It is, it's almost like floating in midair. And the only thing that's keeping you up in the sky is the amount of freshly cut green grass, and it's kind of emanating and evaporating that green, juicy smell. And that smell in itself becomes like a green cloud, and that cloud keeps you afloat. and it kind of carries you throughout the day. Now, some people complain about the longevity of Bel Respiro, saying it doesn't last long on my skin. It's really not the case for me. And when I love a perfume and I use it a lot, I kind of tend to get anosmic. And that's okay. What are you going to do? Other people are still going to smell it on you. You can go check out my video on the anosmic aspect of perfumes and how, the trickery of it. I've done a video on anosmia in perfumes as well. So go check that out to kind of learn more about that. But strangely enough, with Bel Respiro, I do not get anosmic. And I think the reason for that is because this one is a shapeshifter in many ways. So once I apply it, I have the very specific top notes. We can reapply. Yeah, it is such a specific old school Chanel vibe. It's almost like a cologne vibe, definitely. It's giving me very much 4711. The alcohol, but then as the alcohol evaporates, right, you might think, oh, well, I don't smell it anymore. I mean, that's when, okay, here we have it sprayed fresh, but then let's go here where it's kind of drying down. That's when it hits that leather accord and the spiciness of it. The green grass comes right after the alcohol. So you have the aldehydic etylic opening, then you get the wet grass, then the wet grass dries down, then out of the wet grass pops the bouquet of flowers with the suede leather accord. After that, we go into the galbanum with the musks. So it keeps taking us on a journey and it keeps us guessing. In other words, Bel Respiro keeps my nose guessing. So on myself, and especially if I spray it on my chest and so my clothes also get some of the perfume onto them, it's an entire day. I keep smelling it on me. I keep getting like random wafts of it, from my chest area, or if I put a little bit on my shirt here in this area, armpit area, not on the actual skin of the armpit, but rather just on the shirt. Wherever there's a pulse on the body, on the clothes, it also has a way of developing. It is breezy. Wonderful in warmer and hot weather because it makes you feel as if there were a breeze keeping you fresh throughout the day. It almost creates this cloud that I was talking about, right? That kind of like a green cloud that elevates you, almost turns into a suede accord and a suede cloud as well, like that dusty, dry suede that kind of just elevates you from the ground and separates you from all the sweat and the annoying aspects of summer and heat. And it keeps you just really beautifully invigorated throughout the day. Much more so than a lot of other fragrances that I also love to use to kind of keep fresh throughout the day. Like, for example, Hermès, the Cologne Eau de Gentian Blanche, the white gentian flower cologne, which is a beautiful bitter gentian accord with Bulgarian rose. Great to use in summer, also dries you up. But the thing about that one is that one stays bitter and dry. The smidge of rose adds a memory of something sweet, but it never goes sweet. However, the beauty of Bel Respiro is that it's more sophisticated than Gentian Blanche. It is, because it hints more at sweetness and musk. Even though this one also does not go sweet. This is not a sweet perfume by any means. But it's not just bitter, dry, or bitter, wet grass either. You know, it is way more complicated than that. And the more it dries down, and the more we get to the DNA of Chanel No. 5. And I always say this, once it clicks, you know, you just know. Every Chanel perfume has something connected to Chanel No. 5, meaning you can layer every single Chanel fragrance with Chanel No. 5. You literally can. And I have reviewed already Bel Respiro Eau de Toilette many moons ago. So now it's time to review the Eau de Parfum. This is why I'm doing this particular review today. Interesting that just a short while ago, another new Les Exclusifs was released, round about the time that I'm doing the review of Bel Respiro. Chanel's Comète was released as well. Now, what is fascinating about these two is that, in fact, in my review, my first review of Comète, I did mention Bel Respiro. There is an echo of Bel Respiro in Comète as well. Fascinating how Comète, I describe this. You can go check out my review of this one. The several reviews I've made of this one on my channel. They're all very different from each other, so they're not just repetition of the same information per video. This one takes us on a journey, right? It's a comet that keeps flying to every different Chanel planet, every different Chanel fragrance planet. And one of the planets that this one lands on is the Bel Respiro planet. And Bel Respiro is what delivers that suede touch in Comète. And Comète does go into that suede leathery accord at a certain point. And that's when you get an echo of Bel Respiro. And it's like Bel Respiro gave its most beautiful side to Comète, for Comète to collect the memory of all the Chanel perfumes in one comet flying through the sky and trying to, kind of find a new future where it can deliver the message to new generations and say like, hey, look, this is what all the Chanel perfumes are about. So I love Comète, by the way. It's a beautiful, beautiful perfume. But Bel Respiro is one of the stepping stones, fundamental in building up future fragrances of or from or for Chanel, because there's an abstraction here. Very fascinating. It's like you took the core of Chanel fragrance DNA and then you've dismantled it and it's kind of burst in many different particles. And Bel Respiro gives you that vibe of that fresh burst, and there's a lot of air filtering through each one of the particles. It's very fresh and airy, but at the same time, when you step away from it and you observe it from a distance, you have a full picture. It's like puntanism, dots placed everywhere. And then when you move away from them, all those dots kind of with your eyes merge into one image and you get a very clear picture, but it's very futuristic. It's kind of like dismantled core of DNA fragrances to be able to then reutilize them or recompact them in zip form, or however you want to call whatever's going to happen in the future technically, to be able to then compress a ginormous amount of information in a very small space and utilize that to carry it into the future. That's what this smells like. It's so beautiful. I mean, it's an abstract Chanel green fragrance. It is a cocoa deconstruction, says Barbara in the chats, right? It's and then at one point it hits you, there is that acidy pissy accord is a little bit similar to what we get in Chance. The first Chanel Chance. Similar to the Chance Eau de Toilette pineapple accord, which is close to the opening of Chance, you have that fruity, pineapple-y Chance accord in Bel Respiro. And it is energetic, very energetic, but succinct. It's so fascinating. We have that aspect of the fuzzy, suede accord, that kind of airy, breezy. Then we have that succinct Chance smell in there as well. Then we have Chanel No. 19's Galbanum moment, where it goes darker, greener. And then that powdery orris root vibe, reining it all back in. And then in the dry down, you have Chanel number 5. I mean, this thing is so, so, so beautiful. So beautiful. I always have a 75 ml bottle with me to travel with. Plus the 200 ml bottle is stationary. But this is the type of perfume that I buy always 2. One to lavish myself with, the 200 ml when I'm stationary, right? And then when I'm on the go, the 75 ml. Like that's how good this is for me, to my nose. Despite Chanel's current prices, it's that good that to me it still warrants purchasing doubles of it, just to never be without. Also because I'm a little bit scared that they might reformulate it yet again, water it down in a weird way, or just, I don't know, maybe some supplier is not going to be able to deliver some ingredient, and then they're going to have to tweak the formula. You never know with perfumes. With every batch code changing, something can happen. As much as the perfume makers want to say, oh, these are very, technology has advanced, everything has become really, we can keep everything under control. No, you can't. It's a highly volatile industry and a highly volatile thing to kind of recreate formulas and just add all the ingredients to create the perfume with every new batch. I mean, if you have a smidge of nature in here, any single natural ingredient in here, and this does smell like it does have a ton of synthetics, but it also smells like it has something natural in there. So if just one natural ingredient, let's just say this perfume has only one natural ingredient to its name, allegedly. Okay, if that were the case, and the harvest for next year of that one natural ingredient is slightly different because the rain season wasn't as good, or because it was, I don't know, for some reason that natural ingredient is slightly sweeter or more bitter than last year, that is going to affect completely the final smell of the new batch. So if you can control the synthetics fully and clone them 1-to-1 and have the synthetics smell exactly the same, like every single batch, you can't do that with the natural ingredients because those are more volatile, and one is enough to shift the smell of a fragrance. The most attentive of noses are going to sniff it out immediately. I'm one of those people, especially because I love my Chanels so much and I love Les Exclusifs. I know immediately, I smell immediately if there's one thing that's slightly different. Now, having said that, doesn't mean that that change is a bad thing. Doesn't mean that it's a good thing. Sometimes we're lucky and we get an even more dense and concentrated batch. Sometimes we get a little bit more watered down batch, but sometimes we get a downright reformulation. Which is what happened in 2016, and I did not like it. But I'm so glad that they reined it back in, and they're bringing the current eau de parfum closer to what the earlier iterations of the eau de toilette used to be. Now, my wish for the future. I know Chanel has discontinued their extraits for the time being of the Les Exclusifs, but I am dreaming of a Bel Respiro Parfum from Chanel. I think that would be on another cosmic level. I think it would just round it off. It would, it would make it darker, deeper, because that's what I wish this one to be, deeper. Right now it's airy and breezy, but I want this perfume from time to time to also dip. And I want it to go dirty into the soil. Yes, I love the freshly cut grass, but I also want to smell the roots of that grass. And I do believe that if this one were to kind of make it into extrait form, that we would get also, if not a full-blown grass root accord, at least we would get like a hint of how the root of this Bel Respiro grass would smell. Oh my gosh, that would be everything. Everything. Grant says in the chats, Bel Respiro is one that Chanel showcased at the launch event of Comet. There you go. You see, not for nothing, I know my Chanels. That's why I'm connecting the two. It makes sense to me that they are really like kind of sisters, brothers, cousins. Something is going on here. They're having a little something, something. How would their love child look like? I don't know. I would also love Comet Parfum, but Comet is also really beautiful in Eau de Parfum. Concentration. But there you have it, guys. So much to say about Bel Respiro, about Coco's Bel Respiro Villa, about the evolution of Chanel number 19. It also goes through Chanel number 19 Poudré a little bit. You know, there's a memory of that as well. So much to talk about Ernest Beau, Henri Robert, Jacques Polge, Olivier Polge, Christopher Sheldrake. All of these perfumers are in here. This little beauty kind of enshrines all of Chanel perfumers. They're all in here somehow. There's a memory of all of them. Really, it's kind of like a key to accessing that beautiful Chanel garden that reveals to us only the best natural vibe that Chanel can deliver. Really, really, really gorgeous. Highly underrated and deserves way more attention, way more love. Chanel, don't you dare even consider for a moment discontinuing this beauty. Seriously, this thing is a masterpiece. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have Bel Respiro, EDT, EDP. Which batch code do you have? Do you love it? Do you not love it? Do you smell it on yourself for hours and hours and hours like I do? Or are you anosmic to it really, really soon? Is it still worth the price? Is it not worth the price? Let me know. I'm just going to enjoy it some more. Until next time, thumb up this video, subscribe, and never give up on love. Bye.